Alright, so before I even start, I want to make one thing very clear. I'm not some hacker, I'm not some internet genius who knows how to navigate the dark web like a pro. I'm just a regular dude, and I made a really dumb decision, and I might have seen something I wasn't supposed to. So here's how it started. I was chilling at my place, just scrolling through YouTube late at night, watching those animated horror stories, you know, the ones with that eerie background music and robotic voice narrating real-life horror experiences. That's when I got the idea to check out the dark web. Not for anything crazy, I swear. I just wanted to see if all those stories about creepy marketplaces and haunted live streams were actually real. I downloaded Tor, set up a VPN, and after some basic Googling, I found myself in this deep web forum where people posted weird locations. Some were abandoned hospitals, others were like underground bunkers. But then I saw this one listing. It was called The House That Watches. The description, short and vague, just said, abandoned since 2003. No records, no maps, no human history, only watchers. There were a few low-quality pictures attached, just grainy black and white images of what looked like an old office building. A few empty rooms, one long hallway with doors on both sides, and a shot of the outside, just a single flickering streetlight in front of a completely windowless concrete structure. But here's the part that really freaked me out. In every single image, there was something off. The angles weren't right. The lighting was all weird, like the photos had been taken under a sky that didn't have a sun. And in the very last image, I swear to God, there was a figure in the doorway. Just standing there. Tall. Still. Watching. I thought it was fake at first. Some random creepypasta type thing, right? Just another internet mystery. But then I saw something that made my stomach drop. There was a Google Maps coordinates link, like, right there. Someone had actually pinned this place on Google Maps, and it wasn't some random country or deserted island either. It was in my city. I sat there for a second, just staring at my screen, questioning my own sanity. This kind of thing doesn't happen in real life, right? There's no way. But before I even had time to think, I did something incredibly stupid. I clicked the link, and it opened. Location, 2 hours outside of the city. It was just an empty plot of land, according to satellite view. But when I switched to street view, that's when my breath hitched in my throat. The building was there, not just an empty lot, not just trees. The actual building from the pictures was there. And the craziest part? The street view image was from 2018. And yet, when I dragged the timeline slider to older images, the building was never there before. I swear, in the 2016 image, it was just a field. In 2013, nothing. In 2009, just dirt. But in 2018, the building just appeared. I don't know what came over me, but at that moment I made the dumbest decision of my life. I grabbed my car keys, threw on a hoodie, and decided, screw it, I was going to see this place for myself. I didn't even tell anyone where I was going. And I wish I had, because that was the last time I ever felt safe. Alright, so I know what you're thinking. Why the hell would you go there? Trust me, I ask myself that same question every single day. But in the moment, I wasn't thinking. It wasn't like I wanted to die or anything. I was just curious. You ever read something online so weird, so unsettling, that it forces you to check if it's real? Like when you hear about those creepy back rooms people find in Walmarts or the underground tunnels beneath Disneyland. Yeah, that's what this felt like. So I got in my car and started driving. The first hour wasn't weird at all, just normal roads, gas stations, McDonald's signs glowing in the dark, the usual. I had my music playing, window down, nothing felt off. But the moment I got off the main highway, that's when the air changed. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like I crossed some invisible barrier. 1 second, I was in normal civilization, and the next, It felt like I was the only person left on the planet. The road turned from smooth asphalt to old, cracked pavement. There were no streetlights anymore, no houses, no cars, just endless dark roads stretching into the trees. And the sky? Pitch black, no moon, no stars, just this thick, suffocating darkness pressing in from all sides. My headlights barely cut through it. It was like my car was moving through some void that wasn't even part of the real world anymore. I checked my phone, no service, of course. But the GPS was still working, and it kept leading me deeper and deeper down these forgotten back roads. At one point, I swear I passed an old, completely abandoned gas station. The windows were shattered, the sign was half hanging off, and there was a single, flickering neon open sign still buzzing in the window. Except there were no lights on inside. I thought about stopping. Maybe asking someone if this road actually led anywhere. But then I saw something that made my stomach turn. There was an old, beat-up car parked out front. Looked like it had been there for years, covered in dirt and vines, but the driver's side door was wide open, and there were fresh footprints leading from the car into the gas station, but none coming back out. I sped the hell up. At this point, every instinct in my body was screaming at me to turn around, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was that same feeling you get when you're playing a horror game and you have to see what's behind the next door. Or maybe it was something else, because the deeper I drove, the harder it became to turn back. It felt like something was pulling me forward. The building that shouldn't exist. After another 30 minutes of driving, I finally saw it. The road ended in a clearing, and right there, in the middle of absolutely nowhere, stood the windowless building from the dark web post. It was even worse in person, just a massive concrete box standing completely alone. No signs, no markings, no parking lot, just dirt and dead grass surrounding it on all sides. And the only light? A single, flickering streetlight standing directly in front of the entrance. Here's the part that really freaked me out. I put my car in park, just staring at the building, debating whether I should actually go inside. But then out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. Not inside the building. Outside, near the tree line. It was just a shape at first, a dark silhouette, standing completely still in the distance, just barely out of my headlight's reach. I blinked, and suddenly there were two of them. Nope, 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 nope. I reached for my phone, but my hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped it. Still no service. I turned back to the tree line. The figures were gone. But the front door of the building, it was now slightly open. Like it had been waiting for me. And at that moment, I swear to God, I heard something whisper from inside the building. 2 words. Come in. And like the dumbass I am, I stepped out of my car. Okay, so let me just say this. Every single part of my body was screaming at me to get back in the car. My legs felt heavy, my chest was tight, and there was this awful, rotting smell in the air that I hadn't noticed before. But for some reason, I kept walking forward. The door to the building was just barely open, wide enough for me to slip through without making a sound. And the second I stepped inside, it was dead silent, like unnaturally silent. No wind, no distant sounds of bugs or animals, just this deep, oppressive quiet, like the entire world had just stopped existing outside this place. The entrance led into a long, empty hallway. The walls were off-white, but not in a clean way, more like a yellowed, hospital waiting room kind of white. The tiles on the floor were cracked and discolored, and there were fluorescent ceiling lights flickering above me, but they made no noise, no hum, just silent, sterile light. I took a deep breath and forced myself forward. The empty rooms. The first few rooms I checked were completely empty. Just old metal office desks, some overturned chairs, and these filing cabinets that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. Some rooms had bulletin boards with long, faded notices still pinned to them. But none of the papers had actual words on them. Just lines. Like someone had taken a pen and just scribbled in perfectly straight lines covering the entire page. I flipped through a few, but they were all the same. That's when I saw the first stain. At the end of the hallway, just outside one of the doors, there was a dark, dried stain on the floor. It looked black under the flickering light. I didn't want to admit it, but I knew what it was. I stepped over it and pushed the next door open. The dead room. This room was different. It smelled horrible, like rotting meat mixed with something chemical, something acidic that made my eyes burn. And then I saw them. The bodies, 3 of them, just lying there, sprawled out across the floor like broken mannequins. Their skin was pale, greyish, and something about them looked wrong. Like they hadn't just died, they had been left here, forgotten. I took a step closer, trying to ignore the bile rising in my throat. That's when I noticed something even worse. They were wearing normal clothes, not old, decayed stuff. Modern clothes. One of them still had a Nike hoodie on, another had a faded Metallica t-shirt. Their shoes weren't even dirty. They hadn't been here for years. They had been here recently. My head was spinning. Who were they? How did they die? And most importantly, was I next, the one that moved? I was backing out of the room, trying to keep my breathing under control when I heard it. A wet, slow movement, like something dragging against the floor. I froze. My eyes shot back to the bodies. One of them had moved, the one in the hoodie. His head had shifted slightly. His mouth was open now, too wide, like his jaw was unhinged, and his eyes were open. But there was nothing inside them, just darkness. Then, I swear to God, his fingers twitched. I was out of that room before I even knew I was running, the hallway that changed. I sprinted back down the hallway toward the entrance, heart pounding so hard I thought it was going to burst. But when I reached the front door, it was gone, just a solid wall. No handle, no frame, nothing, like the building had swallowed it whole. I spun around, looking for another way out. And that's when I realized the hallway had changed. The layout wasn't the same anymore. The rooms I had passed before, gone. Now there was only one door at the end of the hall, and it was open. There was something standing inside, not moving, not breathing, just watching. And in the dim, flickering light, I saw its mouth slowly start to stretch into a grin. Then it took one step forward, and I ran. All right, so at this point, I wasn't thinking anymore. I was running purely on adrenaline, my only goal being to get the hell away from whatever the hell was in that room. I didn't look back. I couldn't, because I knew if I looked, I'd see it. And I had a gut-wrenching feeling that if I saw its face, if I actually understood what I was looking at, my brain wouldn't be able to handle it. So I ran. The hallway was endless now. The more I ran, the longer it seemed to stretch, like the building itself was warping, making sure I stayed inside. I passed doors that hadn't been there before. Some of them were slightly open. And I swear, as I ran past, I could hear things breathing inside them. Not human breathing. Something else. Something that had been waiting, the mirror room. After what felt like forever, I reached the end of the hall. There was another door, wide open. I had no choice. I ran inside and slammed it shut behind me, locking it just as something heavy slammed against the other side. I backed away, trying to catch my breath. That's when I realized where I was. The room was completely empty. No furniture, no windows, just 4 mirrors, one on each wall, floor to ceiling. And when I looked into them, my reflection was wrong. It was still me, but it wasn't. The eyes were a little too dark. The mouth was curved into the slightest grin, even though I knew my real face was just frozen in fear. And then The reflection blinked. I didn't. I felt my stomach drop. That wasn't me. I stepped back. My reflection didn't. It just stood there, grinning. And then, all at once, every version of me in the mirrors tilted their heads at the same time. Not just a little, all the way, like a broken doll. And then they spoke, not with my voice, not with any voice, just one word in my own mind. Stay. I spun around, and the door was gone. The thing in the reflection. At this point, I was losing it. I knew I wasn't dreaming. This wasn't some sleep paralysis nightmare, or one of those weird fever dream experiences you forget when you wake up. This was real. I pressed my hands against the mirror, desperately trying to find some way out. That's when my reflection did something that made my blood run cold. It raised its arm and pointed behind me. I froze. I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want to know, but I could feel it. The air behind me shifted. The temperature dropped. It was right there, breathing, watching. And then I felt it. A hand, cold, thin, fingers too long, resting lightly on my shoulder. The touch sent pure ice through my body, and then it whispered, but not out loud, inside my head. "You were never supposed to find this place," I snapped. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Nothing but one final mirror right in front of me, and inside it I saw the thing that had been following me. It was tall. Skin stretched too tight over its bones, mouth hanging open in a permanent silent scream. And the worst part? It wasn't behind me, it was inside the mirror, waiting. And the second my eyes met its empty, pitch-black stare, the glass shattered. I don't remember hitting the ground. I don't even remember falling. All I remember is the feeling of cold glass slicing my hands as I scrambled to my feet, surrounded by shattered reflections of myself. Except they weren't me. They were still moving. Even though I was frozen in place, every broken piece of mirror still showed my reflection shifting on its own. Some of them had their mouths open too wide, some had no eyes, some were still grinning, and one of them was looking behind me. I didn't turn around, I just ran. The hallway that shouldn't have existed. I wasn't in the mirror room anymore. Somehow, I had crashed through the floor and landed in another hallway, except this one. This one was worse. The walls were blackened like they had been burned, but there was no smoke, no smell, just charred, crumbling walls stretching forward into the dark. And the floor? The tiles were wet, like someone had just mopped up blood but didn't bother drying it. And the worst part? There were footsteps, not just mine. Fresh, wet footprints leading further down the hallway, not in a straight line. Circling like whoever made them had been pacing. Waiting. I wiped my hands on my hoodie, still shaking. I had two options, stay here and die or keep moving. So I followed the footprints, the room that led outside. After what felt like hours, I saw a door, but not just any door, a glass door. And behind it, the outside, I could see the dirt lot, the single flickering streetlight. My car, still parked where I left it. I nearly cried. I sprinted toward it, reaching for the handle, yanking it open. It didn't budge. I pulled harder. Still nothing. That's when I saw it. In the reflection of the glass. Something was standing directly behind me. The final choice. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because if I looked, I knew it would be real, but I could feel it. Its breath, its weight, standing right there, waiting. And then, in that same hollow, static-filled whisper, it spoke. But this time, it gave me a choice. "You can leave." The words slithered into my mind, pressing against my skull like a migraine. "But one must stay." I swallowed. I understood immediately. It didn't mean I had to stay. It meant something else, something worse. I looked at my own reflection. My face was blank, expressionless, but my eyes were different, not afraid, not panicked. They were calm, like my reflection had already decided for me. And then my reflection smiled. Not a grin, not a twisted, broken thing like the others, just a normal human smile, and in a voice that was mine, but not mine, it whispered, "Go." The glass door unlocked, and before I could even think, before I could even hesitate, I stepped through. The world that moved on without me. The second my feet touched the dirt, the air changed. The building behind me was silent. No more endless hallways, no more whispers, just a cold, dead structure standing against the night. I turned back, half expecting to see something staring at me through the glass. But all I saw was my reflection, standing there, still smiling, and as I watched, it turned away and walked back inside. Then the door closed, and the building was empty again. The ending that never ended. I don't remember driving home. I don't even remember getting in my car. All I know is 1 second I was staring at that empty building, and the next I was back in my apartment, like nothing ever happened, like I had never gone there at all. But things are wrong now. Not in a huge, obvious way, just subtle things. My mum called me the other day and asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. She got quiet and said, "You just sound different." I checked my phone gallery, and there's a new video I don't remember recording. It's just a 10-second clip of me, standing in my room, not moving, not blinking, just staring at the camera. And the worst part? I was smiling, but I wasn't holding the phone. And I don't remember pressing record. I don't know what I left behind in that building. I don't know what took my place, but I think it came back with me. And sometimes, when I look in the mirror now, I see my reflection watching me, not copying me, just watching. And every now and then when I blink, it doesn't